I had struggled to find any sort of like good single page cheat sheet, of which you probably can figure out that I'm all about the cheat sheets, just because having everything in one page to me is easier than having to read multiple pages of the laws or even some of the PDFs and things that I've got linked on the website, which I've pointed folks to. So I took a cue from a cheat sheet that Cal North Referee Administration had done in some of their offside videos and kind of added to it so that I thought everything with regard to offside would fit in one sheet. So assuming it makes sense to you folks tonight, I'll probably go ahead and throw it up on the website so everyone can have it. So assuming you guys can hear me, then just again chime in anytime. Otherwise, I'm going to go through what I've got here. So offside is like a multi-step process, and typically as an AR, because you've got the best view, it's your main responsibility, and so you've got to kind of do all this sort of checkboxing in your head of the criteria that have to be met before you go ahead and decide to lift that flag to indicate to the center that you think that an offside offense has happened. So the first thing is, what are the requirements for a player to be in an offside position? That's the first prerequisite. So the first thing, and heard some folks out on the field last Saturday without a complete understanding of this, is that there are some situations where you just flat out can't be offside, like offside is not in play, and those are a goal kick, a throw in, or a corner kick. And the easy way that I remember these is that the ball has gone out of bounds before these three restarts. So if it's in one of those scenarios, then just don't even pay attention to offside on the immediate restart. Now, as soon as that ball is in play and gets kicked by another attacker, then certainly offside can happen. So it's only on the initial throw or the initial kick. And the reason this, you'll see this in the pros, like a corner kick, they'll kick it right into the box, and an attacker can dive in and head the ball straight into the goal without it being an offside. So that is criteria number one. The throw-in's probably the biggest area that you can get caught up on, and I made that mistake as more recently as a year ago because I just didn't have a good enough view, and I should have kept my flag down, but I didn't. Topic number two, whoops, is the attacker's body parts, everything they can play the ball with, which excludes the arms, has got to be nearer to the opponent's goal or the goal they're trying to score in, uh, nearer than the halfway line, or if you're playing a U10 game, the build out line. They've got to be closer to the goal than the ball, and they've got to be closer to the goal than the second to last opponent. And sometimes we kind of incorrectly tell people, oh, that's the last defender and then the goalie, but there are plenty of times where the goalie has come out for the ball and there are two defenders that are closer to the goal than the goalkeeper. So it's better just to keep it accurate and call it the second to last opponent. And then when do you take that snapshot? If you recall from the referee class, it says you've got to take that snapshot, and that snapshot occurs at the moment that the ball is played by a teammate. And it's really, really hard to do that with your eyes because I've got examples that I can show either late tonight or other classes. Even just taking like a quarter second to turn your eyes and look, kids that know how to run and time it correctly will be yards ahead of that second last defender, and it'll sure look like they were offside when by the book, and if you had instant replay, they would have been even with that second last defender, or two LDs, sometimes what I will call it, at the time of the kick. So long story short, using your ears is another way to kind of judge that moment, right? So if you see that someone is really close to the second last defender and they're thinking about running past, or they're already running and trying to time it with the kick, then it's best not to really even look at the kick, but time that player. You should be able to hear the kick, and then it's also kind of the center's responsibility to make sure that that kick didn't end up getting played by a defender. But we'll get to that later. And then the parenthetical here, if there's a pass by an attacker and it bounces off a defender's hip or back or shoulder or whatever, but that defender wasn't really paying attention and made no actual attempt to play the ball, just because it hit a defender doesn't mean that now it's a free for all. That player is still going to be in an offside position, assuming the last criteria here um, is met. And so these last two are kind of complementary, right? The At the time of the kick, they were behind, and I said a deflection doesn't count. But if an opponent does, in fact, try to intercept the ball, that can reset offside and be okay. So, again, bumping off of a hip or whatever, that meets this criteria, and the person would be offside. But a deliberate attempt will make that offside player okay to receive the ball. And a couple examples of that might be, let's say, a goalkeeper punts a long ball to somebody in an offside position. If a defender tries to jump and like head the ball back towards the other direction, but they don't head it enough that it changes direction, it bounces off the top of their head and then goes to that offside player. Well, all's fair. That guy is now no longer offside because that person deliberately jumped and tried to head the ball. The fact that it wasn't the best header, does not matter. And that's why it says here, it doesn't really matter whether it's successful or not. The same thing would be a handball. I had a ref ask me this earlier in the season. Sometimes little kids do funny things and they'll raise their arms for who knows what, and they'll essentially deliberately handball a long ball that's shot over their head. Well, if it glances off their fingertips and goes to a player in an offside position, that person really isn't offside anymore because that defender tried a deliberate play, albeit it was a handball and not very smart. So you should go ahead and give advantage to that player and let them continue, presumably one on one to the goalie, because that's more advantageous than blowing the whistle for the handball and having them do a direct free kick, but then the defense is all setting up. So you'll notice, there's all these ampersands here, basically saying that all four of these gray boxes have to be correct for that person to now be in an offside position. But that does not mean we go ahead and raise our flag yet, because they have to get involved in play, and that'll be the next chunk that we cover here. So any questions on being in an offside position? Okay. So when does being in an offside position turn into an offside offense where you would go ahead and raise your flag? The most obvious one is interfering with play, and the two flavors of that are probably either flat out touching the ball or playing the ball. The difference there just meaning play is probably more of a deliberate kick. Touch may or may not be, but that still is getting involved with play because you are manipulating the ball. This is pretty cut and dry. What you'll hear errantly from some coaches, if you try to raise your flag early, they'll be like, hey, they didn't touch the ball. Well, we're about to see that that isn't necessarily required. So the next one is interfering with an opponent, and there's a couple different flavors here. One that you probably won't see at this age, but you got to keep it in mind, is being in an opponent's line of vision. So if somebody's offside and squatting in front of the goalkeeper, and if there's a shot at goal, you may notice that like the goalkeeper takes a little extra bit of time to move to try to save or whatever. That is interfering with an opponent. So you would raise your flag on that. That one probably requires some cooperation with the center versus the AR. Challenging for a ball. So here's where you do not have to actually get to the ball and touch the ball before you as an AR want to raise your flag. So even just getting prepared to challenge an opponent for that ball is enough to be interfering with that opponent. It could be that like that opponent is freaked out and rushes trying to get the ball and they misplay the ball or tap it out of bounds, for example. These last two are a little bit rarely called, but they're here for completeness. And this is where the offside player does something to kind of mess up the opponent, you know, could be yelling, it could be jumping at them but not making contact. Um, Anything that basically messes up play is still interfering with an opponent. But bear in mind that you are going to find scenarios where there is a player in an offside position, and I've even had three players in offside positions, and the ball comes through. You need to wait to see whether or not, one of these is happening. And just because there's three players up there kind of confusing the defense or maybe the goalkeeper, unless there's something very deliberately that they're doing, you don't go ahead and lift that flag just yet until it becomes much more obvious that they are, one of them is interfering with an opponent. The last one gets seen by me with a decent amount of regularity. I don't know if I would call it one in every 10 games. It obviously kind of depends on how good the goalkeeper is, but it's one that a lot of people miss. And so I guess I want to foot stump that you should kind of pay attention to this one and keep it in your mind. If the Everybody kind of, I think, knows that if somebody takes a shot and it hits the goalpost and then comes back to them, clearly it hasn't touched another defender. But, if somebody shoots from far away and it hits the goalpost and then lands right in front of somebody who was offside, well, they just gained an advantage by cherry picking in front of the goal and tapping it in. And so that's when you would raise your flag. Now, the odds of bouncing it off of the goalpost are pretty slim, but the same is applicable if there's a deliberate save of a goal, and this is more often than not by a goalkeeper, but it doesn't have to be by the goalkeeper. A defender could stick their leg out and have that ball bounce off. So you'll see this quite a bit from goalkeepers. They will parry the ball, or flat-handed, the ball will bounce off of them and then bounce like 6 feet away. And there may have been a cherry picking attacker there in an offside position. And if that ball lands in front of them, then they shoot it in. um, you need to raise your flag for offside there. And every time I do it, I get complaints of like, that was a late call or what's the deal, just because this one is not that well understood. So note that even though it's like an instantaneous, bounce off of a leg or the hands of the keeper, when it's this deliberate save, you might be inclined to think, oh, well, that sounds more like a deflection than a deliberate save, but I mean, a deliberate play, but they are taking an action to stop that ball from going in the goal. And so that's as deliberate as you need. But in this case, because it's preventing a goal, that deliberateness does not reset the line of offside like it does in that last gray box up top. So saving
So
a goal is
I have
an
a
exception.
question. Yeah, I have a question about that. So are you was the so if a player is not offside and they shoot the attacker and they shoot the goal and
Yep.
they're taught to like follow up, keep going, don't just stop, right? So they continue on and it does deflect off the goalie and bounces back. Now they were onsides when they kicked attempted the goal, but they are now in an offsides position because they continued on past the second to the last defender. And
Right.
you're saying that's offsides, and then they kick it off, like it bounced off the goalie, then they kick it in and complete it. That's technically offsides.
So
Did I understand that
remember
right?
that I'm going to try and share a different document here because I don't think I have it sharing right now. Sorry about this. Share. Are you guys seeing the words goal?
Yeah, yeah. We're seeing a PDF.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah,
So in this case, uh, like if like here, so a or see this is yeah. In both of these cases, the player who ends up getting the ball after it bounced off the goal or bounced off of the keeper's hands um, was offside, right? A2 is ahead of A1, and A1 had the ball. So A2 was definitely offside. In this case, A2 is ahead of the both defenders and he's ahead of the ball that was back here. So in these two cases, he would be offside. But what I think I heard you say was if A2 was behind these two blue players at the time A1 kicked, and then he keeps running in and receives the ball in an offside position, no, that is fine because that mental snapshot that you took when the kick happened back here, he was good back here, right? So
Okay.
it doesn't
And
matter when it bounced off of the goalkeeper or when it bounced off of the frame. It's always when the teammate kicked it. And so, yes, it's very hard to keep track of all those players. But if you kind of took a snapshot in your mind and you said, okay, I just saw A1 shoot at the goal. I didn't see any other red people up here. But then, it bounces off the goal frame. And then next thing you know, there's a red person there and they shoot it in. You need to remember, hey, I didn't remember seeing any other red players up here besides the shooter. So that guy must have been onside, and that's a good goal.
okay, and so let's say that in this scenario, A1 has kicked. They're onside when they kicked. They kick it off the crossbar, and they're continuing to follow up their shot. They pass up the blue player, the white player,
Oh, right.
and
Okay.
now they're like, A1 is now in an offside position, and they kick it again,
Yeah,
like
but who did they receive it from?
from themselves. So that's not
Exactly.
offsides. Okay.
That's right. It has to
Okay.
be
Okay.
by a teammate.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so
Got it.
you can go one on one and keep kicking it at the goalkeeper, and he can keep blocking it back to you as many
Okay.
times as
Got it.
possible.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, good
Okay.
question. Good question. Oopsie daisy. Okay, uh, so those are the three different flavors of offside. That was a good question about the passing it to yourself, so to speak, as well as the difference between, were they really cherry picking or did they just keep running in and then, it was only after the deliberate save or the bounce off of the post that you now see them and they look like they're offside, but they weren't at the kick. Those are all things that happen very fast and just, take practice um, to recognize. And the general caution is, don't call an offside if you aren't sure. Like we want everybody to be sure that there was an offside. Don't just call it if you suspect it. Um, so anybody else have questions about this? Does this kind of make sense about, all four of these have to take place to be in an offside position, and then you need at least one of these yellow things to happen before you lift the flag. Okay. So with that, I'm going to do some of this here. So let me see if I can shrink that. All right. So these are scenarios that you can find in like the IFAB law book, but I've kind of animated them to help. So you should be able to find these diagrams after the fact if you want to. So as we go through here, decide whether or not it's offside or not. And then after that, I want you to kind of tell me like, how should the AR have moved during this scenario? And if it was, and at the end of this play, where's the ball going to be spotted for the restart? Okay, so we've got a attacker A who's basically behind the goalie, just hanging out by the goal. He's not messing with anybody, but an attacker, passes it through the defense right to him. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I would say
Off,
that's offsides.
Why would the A be behind the goalie?
Goalie wasn't paying attention.
And he got into
well,
the
or the goalie's smart and they're like, yeah, go ahead and pass it to this guy. Like he's going to be
oh that
offside. So
okay, that's
yes,
the goalie box. Sorry. It looked like it's like the goalie net, like he's in there with him. I'm like, what's going on?
oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I see. Okay, it's the goalie box.
The
Okay.
goal would be back there, but yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is
Got it.
offside, and so as AR, when someone passes like this, your job is to follow the ball, and then where's the restart for offside? I didn't cover this on the cheat
It,
sheet, but
Wasn't it, is,
wouldn't it be right there
or
yep,
where
where it was
the,
exactly.
called?
It's where
Yeah.
the offense takes place, and per that cheat sheet we went over, it's going to be where they touch the ball or where they interfere with an opponent. So, yep, you guys see the bigger soccer ball right there. So, you would kind of jog as soon as that ball gets close enough to this person, that they essentially are going to touch it. Then you go ahead and lift your flag, which means you're standing right here, which then means as soon as the referee blows the whistle and then they look at you, then you take your flag from straight up and then lower it to be straight out horizontal, which means it's going to be kind of in the middle part of the field, right where this ball is. All right, good job. How about the same scenario, but instead of passing, the guy just blasts the ball right into the goal? His
I think it's
teammate here.
not
good goal?
offsides.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
offsides.
Yep, you are correct. And what do we do after a good goal to tell the referee we think it was a good goal?
Well, because we're the AR.
Yep.
Head
So,
back to the center,
yep. So here you go. So
the
you
blue
would be
line.
following that shot, albeit it's very hard to keep up with a blasted ball. But theoretically, we follow the ball to the goal line in case this guy stops it right on the line. You want to be as close to here. Sorry, you guys probably aren't seeing the cursor. Um, you want
We
to be
can
as
see it.
close to there to see whether it went fully all the way over. And then if you say, yep, that's a good goal, then you just do a little jog of 10 yards or something back to the center. So here you've got an offside player running after the ball, and you've got an onside player, B, running to the ball. B's the one who ends up getting it. A doesn't.
I don't think that's offsides.
Does the B move up to the position where that ball is before the blue?
Yeah, in this example, they don't really say what blue is doing, but let's just pretend that the B and the blue player both, go to the ball first because they're close, and it takes longer for A to get there. The gentleman was right, because the onside player B got to the ball first. Well, the fact that A was going for it, but he didn't get there, then he's not going to be guilty and not penalized.
But if B got there before, like if B ran up really fast in front of those other players, wouldn't he end up offsides or no?
So B's in this spot at the time that his buddy who's further back kicks the ball,
Kicks
right?
it?
And so you
Okay, then
take that
he's
snapshot. So he's
okay.
actually got three defenders in front of him, right? The goalie and two
Okay.
defenders. So he can be as far up as right next to this second to last blue guy right near the penalty arc,
Until that ball
and
is
still
kicked.
be okay. Yep, yep.
But once that ball is kicked, then he can go up and get it.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's where all the parents and coaches and everybody are going to, they're going to see the balls kicked. They're going to turn their eyes and they're going to see somebody who's like behind all the defenders. And they're going to be like, that's offside. But you, as AR, are the only person who's got the really good view to tell whether or not, if B was like sprinting at the time and was right next to the last blue player at the time of the kick. And then by the time everybody looks, he's like all the way up here by the penalty spot. It's going to look offside, but you, as the assistant referee, know that he was even with that player at the time of the kick. So you're always going to get some grief, but you're the only one who's got the perfect angle, and everyone else is going to have a flawed opinion based on their vision.
What if A blocked the middle defender while B came in to get the ball?
Yeah, so if A was running towards the center of the field and this other blue guy was running, if he ends up sort of doing impeding without contact, well, that is also an indirect free kick offense. So you could call it offside, you could call it impeding without contact. If A actually kind of mugs or holds that blue player from running after the ball, well, now you've got an actual foul, and fouls trump being offside. You'd rather give the blue team a direct free kick as opposed to an indirect free kick. So if an offside player commits a foul, that's a foul. Like you don't even worry about offside at that point.
Okay.
All right, so in this case, there's a pretty long shot. A is cherry picking like all by himself. Nobody else has got a chance to get to that ball except maybe the goalie. And so the question is, what do you do here?
That's offsides.
That looks offsides, yeah. From the A
Yep.
player. Right?
Yep, it's offside, and the key part here that I had whited out is you can actually blow the whistle before A actually like touches the ball. And some people will say, well, why? Like they're not challenging like if they're not challenging an opponent, you can go ahead and wait. But some people will argue, well, what if A actually ran a long way? Like they're going to be mad that like they ran a long way and then you blew the whistle. Another reason to blow it early would be, let's say the goalkeeper was actually closer. um, right away, that like there's a potential collision between A and the goalkeeper, and A is going for the ball. I mean, unless this is an upper level division game and you think player A is smart enough to realize, oh, I was offside, so I'm actually going to peel off, or listen to their coach saying, you were off. So you don't necessarily have to wait until they touch the ball. And you would follow the ball to this spot. But if you called it early, the restart would be where the soccer ball is here, rather than waiting until they actually got to it. All right, so the offside player, well, actually, it looks like I'm not sure why they called this even offside now that I'm looking at it, because it sure looks like he's behind that blue player. But for the sake of this, let's say he was indeed offside and he's chasing a ball that was passed through to him, but he never actually gets to it before it goes out.
Not offside because nobody's touching it, right?
Yep. It's a goal kick. So exactly right. Like they didn't ever get to the ball, so it wasn't that first option on the cheat sheet. There's no defenders here, so they couldn't have been interfering with an opponent. So that means they didn't meet that second criteria, and then there's no deliberate save, so they don't meet the third criteria. So they were in an offside position, but they didn't do any of the three bad things that you're not supposed to do there.
That's offsides.
Yep, nice. Looks like I should have done a little more white out down bottom.
Oh, I thought it's not offside because isn't he the guy that's kicking it makes the goal, but he's not offsides.
Correct.
Player A doesn't ever touch the ball.
Right, but remember, part of the cheat sheet was like interfering with an opponent, and one flavor of that is blocking the line of vision. So if the goalkeeper is looking at player A and can't see that the red guy has shot the ball until like the last minute, then they don't have the time to dive and potentially make that save.
How
but
common is that?
Wouldn't that be an indirect?
I'm
Wouldn't that be a foul when he's interfering?
No, this is just a normal offside, so it would be an indirect free kick, in the penalty area, but coming out for the blue team. As far as how often does this happen? I mean, I'm
even thinking like U10, like basically, I'll be doing my first AR this Saturday at U10. So I'm just curious
I would say pretty
often.
seldom. I mean, I've been doing this 8 years at multiple levels, and I haven't really seen it. It's very, very hard to call. You'll see.
It seems very subjective. It seems very subjective that A is. I mean, sure, if they're literally like right in front of the goal, keeper, I can understand calling it like if they almost seem like they're doing it on purpose, but it almost seems very subjective that to make that
Correct.
call, especially the AR, because they you're from the side, and
Yep. Well,
you can't
right.
really
This
see what
one
they're.
definitely needs more of the center referee's cooperation, and that's very difficult at youth level. If you watch
Okay.
any of those inside video review uh, videos on YouTube that Kim has shared, you will see quite a few of these that they cover at the pro level. But they've got VAR,
Yeah.
replay and all that. So, but just as far as an example of what technically is illegal, but yes, you'll probably hardly ever call this in your career. All right, so same scenario, but the attacker A is way off to the side, and the
Yeah.
goalie
That's
may be
So,
not
the goalie
offsides.
may be worried
yeah,
that
not,
the person will pass to A, but then the person shoots instead of passing.
I'd say not also.
Yep, not offside. Good job. In this case, same thing, right? You would follow the ball until you saw it go into the back of the net. Oops, then at that point you can turn around and do your little 10-yard jog. So the keyword here is A runs towards B, defender B, but it says does not challenge the player B for the ball. So think
So
back to the cheat sheet.
yeah, that's
Not,
not offside. That's a corner kick.
not, yeah,
Good job.
yeah.
Yep, just being in proximity, like a yard away doesn't really mean anything unless they really startle opponent B or yell at them or literally start challenging for the ball. Well done.
So that would be offsides. That's basically the opposite, right?
Yep. This time they are going ahead and like bumping into the back of B or whatever. So this is one of those scenarios where again, okay, so like if you think of the three things you can do to actually be an offense, the first one is actually playing or touching the ball, right? But if B gets the ball first, well then A really hasn't touched the ball. But let's say A bumps up into B or tries reaching for the ball and messes up B's ability to field it correctly, and that's why it ends up going off over the goal line. That is challenging, and that was that second item on the little cheat sheet. Yep, offside.
So we're saying that B is in an offside position.
Yeah, I would say they're
Pretty
just
close.
behind
Yeah.
this last
Okay.
person. Yep.
So yeah, that would be offsides if they
Yeah,
didn't
I
play the ball.
agree.
Yep, deliberate save. That's the third category on the cheat sheet. So that is an offside offense. Gaining an advantage from being in that position. And like in this case, when you see that shot, theoretically, you're going to like take off to try and have that view down the goal line in case they, save it right on top of the goal line. But then as soon as they parry it, then you're going to be like, oh gosh, now I got to like follow the ball back, until it gets to the second last defender. But that's when you would, all this would happen so fast, you'd probably just do a quick little sachet and then lift your flag. So in this case, if it isn't clear, the goalie's out of position, but defender C like sticks out their leg or uses their chest or something to stop the ball from going in the goal.
Yeah. So we're saying that. Wait. So
Yeah,
B and the goalkeeper are B
So
is just ahead of the goalkeeper, like a little closer. It's
yes, just right,
okay.
just barely ahead of the
Okay.
goalkeeper.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
mean, but
offsides.
yeah, I mean the question sort of forces it, saying it is assume
Oh,
B's
it's
in an
saying,
offside
okay, I see.
position.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I
no
see.
problem. It is very close the way it's
Yeah, they
drawn.
sure make it.
And does C touch the ball?
C is the one who stops it from going in the goal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they
And then
mean
it
by
bounces back to B,
correct.
and then B like what goes to make the shot? That's
I mean, the ball can even just roll up and touch them in the feet.
mm, and that would be offside.
Yes.
Oh goodness.
So this is just a foot stomp that it doesn't matter whether it was the goalie or a regular player that can't use their hands. If they stop the ball from going in the goal and then it ricochets to someone who was in an offside position.
So in this situation, if C literally just blasted the ball right into B and went right off their shins, that's still like that. I mean, it's smart on C's part, right? That's an offside. It's like right. You said if it just touches B in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a right. I don't think soccer, would want to reward B. Like if Charlie blasted the ball and it literally just bounced off B's legs and went in the goal, you know, soccer would not want to reward the red player for being in an offside position. So whether or not B actually tried to score or not, the fact that the ball, touched them meets that first criteria of being an offside
Okay.
offense.
So even if it just sort of grazed B, like let's just say it definitely deflected, didn't go in the goal, but it just sort of grazed B, and so B started chasing it now to like
Yep.
regain
I mean,
possession. That's
right,
still an offsides.
right, because that
Okay.
cheat sheet said touch
Yeah.
or play, right?
Okay.
And yep,
And in this situation, C would have already had to have been in front of B, right? So it wasn't like B got up there and then C ran in front of B, like to help the goalkeeper out when the
yeah, that's
goalkeeper's
right.
out of
I mean, right.
position, right?
For B
Okay.
to be in an offside position, which the words down at the bottom stipulate, yeah, we have to assume that both these two blue players are closer to the goal than B is at the time that his teammate A, sent in this kick.
Okay. Now, silly question. I don't know if I missed this earlier. Is let's say C was up a little bit. Let's say the goalkeeper and C were both outside the penalty box, but B was
Well,
back
outside
in
the
the
goal area, you
I'm
mean?
sorry,
Like,
the goal
yeah.
area.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
The goal area. And then B was behind, like B was literally the last like
Correct.
the last player. Is that
Right.
offsides? Does it have to be there has to be one defender in front or in back? I don't know
There has to
which
be
direction.
two, whether it's the goalie and this other guy or whether it's two guys, two blue, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
has to be,
I
yeah.
got that. But let's say B is completely behind everyone.
Right. I mean, it's offside as soon as the ball gets to him, whether or not it was direct from A to B, or if somehow, like, let's
Okay.
say, so yeah, to your point, if C was up front and even the goalie was further up front, so B's all by himself, A shoots,
Or kicks it to B, whatever. Just it gets to B on
well,
the
yeah,
next play.
the ball
That is
goes this way,
offsides,
but
right?
then one of these blue people touch it. Um, if they stopped it from going in the goal, that's a deliberate save. And then if it gets to red, that still means it's offside. Now, that's
Okay.
very different than if it was like not in front of the goal, right? If it was over here in the side and red kicked it and then a blue player swung a leg and then touched it and then it went to the offside red, well, that reset the offside and the red person's, not guilty because the blue player played it. The only exception that the defense gets for playing a ball and not, resetting offside is if it saved a shot on goal.
Okay, so my question is basically just to make sure I understand, like offsides doesn't require at least one defender
No.
behind. Like, so if the goalkeeper had come out and just the goalkeeper itself, let's say forget the C,
Yep.
the goalkeeper had come out. Now there's literally like
Nobody.
is sneaks behind and is sitting there and then either takes the pass, deflection, whatever it is. The minute they play that ball, they're in an offsides position, right? I just want to make sure
Yep.
that, okay, good. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure that it wasn't like, okay.
So one scenario that you might actually see in reality, when teams don't know what they're doing, like everybody will be, up here for a throw in. I mean, yes, the goalie's probably back here, but if there's a throw, you could literally have a player like hanging out here by the goalie. If that person's the one who runs up, there's no offside on a throw in, but
Got it.
after that thing's touched, sorry, it's probably a bad example. But yes, 0 players, 1 player, as long as you've got 2 players, then you're good. But whether it's 0 or 1 in front of you remaining, then yeah, either one of those
0 or
cases
1.
is
Got it.
offside.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, looks like we've got another save here, but in this case, it's the player B who's kind of, running in and following the shot, right? As the coaches say, follow the shot, follow the shot. So B is
Yeah.
the one who ends up getting to the ball.
That's not offsides.
Correct. Because they were behind, it looks like 3, defenders at the time of the kick. Okay, so pay attention to the words deflected or rebound. So this would be like it bounces off the blue player's hip or something like that.
Well, that is offsides because he gains an advantage, right? Doesn't matter that it got deflected.
That's right. Now you're going to hear like, it touched the blue player. Well, yeah, touching doesn't count. It has to be a deliberate play by that person to essentially give the red player a freebie, and no longer make him offside.
Okay, so if that blue player like winds up and just totally whiffs the ball, like
Correct.
like you see
Yep.
little kids do, like I mean
Yep.
that's obviously a deliberate attempt and just totally whiffs it or just grazes it into the B.
Yep, that's a
Then B
perfect
is
example. You'll see
okay.
at U10. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Clear as day, they wound up their leg and they took a swing at it, but they just barely grazed it and it went to this offside player. Well, that's now a pass from a defender, not a pass from a teammate. And so that
Okay.
person can't be offside. Yep, good one. This one's getting wordy.
Yeah. So A is
They're onside, right?
So
that
see
would
what,
be
yeah. So
fine.
if you haven't figured it out, the B1, B2 shows like B1 at the time of the kick and then B2 later.
Oh, so
So
he's
it's
moving.
not
Okay.
offsides. They're onside, so.
Well, C is offsides though, right?
But he's not touching the ball.
But it deflects to him, right? Isn't that what it's saying? Or wait, I didn't read it all the way.
He's not interfering with the opponent.
Once B gets here, B passes it back to his teammate C.
Well, then he should be fine, right? Or but you said he's
Correct.
offside. Yeah.
Because C wasn't really involved in play. Yeah, okay, he was standing next to this guy, but if he wasn't messing with the blue player over here, B runs in, gets the ball, I guess decides like, hey, I'm going to fake out the goalie and have my buddy C take the shot. Well, at the time, B from the B2 position passes the ball to C. C, even though he only has one blue player in front of him, remember what the criteria are for being in an offside position. You have to be closer to the goal line than the ball also. And so in this case, he is not closer to the goal than the ball when his teammate passes backwards. So even though he only has one defender, he's behind the ball and therefore not can't be in an offside position.
So if C was up in front of B2,
Yep,
he would be in offside position.
correct.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. The ball, like everybody harps about the second to last defender, and that's what you always hear about for
Yeah.
offside. But the ball is also one of those key ingredients in being offside. And so this is kind of a similar situation that you might have where there's two players. Let's say two red people have made it through the entire defense, and they're 2-on-1 versus the goalie. What you'll often find is that the one guy will pass to his teammate, and he can even pass the ball forward, which looks very weird to the eye. But what matters is if B2 and Charlie here were both running towards the goal, and B2 makes the pass in a forward direction, it doesn't matter which way the ball was actually kicked, because C, as long as C was still further away
Behind.
from the goal than the ball, he's not offside. Even though there's only one defender left, he was, further back than the ball rather. And so he's onside technically, even though it's a 2-on-1.
Okay, so now where should that AR be? At the situation where B2 is now passed it back to C, the AR should be up with
Yeah, so
B2,
you're
right? To
always with the
C
second to last defender or the ball. So the green arrows that I
or
drew
the ball.
here
Okay.
show that you would follow the ball up here, right? You've left the second to last defenders, which are way back here at like the 19-yard line. You run up to where the ball is, and then as soon as B2 passes back to C, you follow the ball back to C. And then if C shoots, well, then you got to run then to the goal line. But
Now
you're
it's
always
subjective.
following the second to last or the ball, whichever's closer to the
Okay,
goal.
so you're up there, you're looking at the ball. Now it's obvious if C has passed B, but if C is right I guess what parallel?
Even, yeah,
Even with B, that's not offside.
that's correct. And I
Okay.
would not get very
Yeah, I
picky,
mean,
in youth
that's I mean,
soccer.
it's very subjective. Obviously, I'm
Right.
just
Yep.
I'm
By the letter of the
curious.
law, it's
Okay.
foot, head, or any of that stuff. But yes, in the spirit of soccer, right? As long as they are, and remember though that in this case, it's not that C is even with B. It's C being even with the ball,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you can be even with the second to last defender, or even with the ball, because when the ball's past the second to last defender, the ball is now the line of offside, and that's why you as an AR run to keep up with the ball, and that's how you keep an eye on, hey, is there anybody ahead of the line of offside still? Okay, that is the end of those. I will show you like just a few other things. I won't keep you long. Um, in case we went fast, I had a bunch of other quiz questions and stuff, but let's see here. This is kind of an interesting one. So here's pretty obvious, like, there's a shot. These two gray guys are offside position. Whether the goalie saved it or it hits the crossbar and then falls down, and then the gray guy, heads the ball. I think you guys know that that's clearly offside, gaining an advantage.
Yeah.
The reason I've got a follow-up question to this, because I have had to, I realized a mistake after I raised my flag for offside and then had to call the center referee over. So let's say this just happened in front of you. You raised your flag, the referee blew the whistle, and then as you guys are getting organized, you now realize that, oh, shoot, I just looked over here and saw that there were these two other guys, close to me, even though I was kind of paying attention over here. So if you then, after the fact, realize it's probably more likely like somebody way far away from you on the other touch line, that there was a black jersey way back here that you didn't see, you need to say, oops, I didn't see that guy. That was an accidental call of offside on my part. Explain that to the ref, and then he should restart with a drop ball. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, so even if it would have resulted in a goal because
yeah,
like they kicked but you raised your flag, that's
right.
just a drop ball.
So really try not to do that in that situation. Yeah, thankfully mine
Okay.
was closer to midfield, but I noticed that I had lifted my flag and I really shouldn't have, and so anyway, and then one other example that I'll show you on the timing, just again to sort of foot stomp how fast you have to be here. So the middle photo, I took this from a YouTube video, and the middle photo shows the green attacker just a quarter second after the kick, or sorry, uh, yeah, and then I think I got this messed up. This must be a half a second after the kick. And so, like I said, if you kind of like are watching the kick and then you turn your eyes and you look, I mean, this sure looks like offside, and that's what the coaches and parents and everybody are going to say. But this is actually where that green player was at the time his teammate kicked the ball. And so he is legal. And if you blow the whistle for offside, you have just robbed that player of an awesome scoring opportunity that he deserved.
And so the
So,
AR should be in this situation, the AR should be at that white player, the
yep,
last
the far right white player, right?
okay, that's where they should be. So you should be able
Yep,
to see that I mean, if you're watching that the green player and listening for the kick of the ball.
exactly. See, right,
Okay.
that's the problem, right? To move your eyes from the left green player over to the right is probably going to look like this middle picture, and then you might be inclined to raise your flag. So that's where it is very hard, for us. And yeah, using your ears is potentially a safer technique than to try and, because nobody can look two places at the same time. All right. With that, I will just open it up if you guys have any last minute questions. I don't want to keep you guys too late.
No, thank you though. These are helpful.
Yeah, no, this has been really good.
Okay, good. Yep. Assuming the cheat sheet wasn't too confusing, I will go ahead and get that up to the website in the next couple days here for everybody to have and maybe print out and keep in their gym bag, or at least have it on their phones. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
yeah, thank you. I'll print it out for my team too and let them see it. That'll be helpful.
yeah. I mean, educating the players is always good. All right. Well, appreciate you guys' participation. Have a good night.
Okay, thanks
All
a
right,
lot.
thank you. Bye.